Every time we do this, I promise everybody that we will do it at least once a month, and I suspect we're nearer 2 months than we are 1 month. Jamie Moodie from New Zealand, welcome again for an update from Down Under. I haven't really forgotten about you, but we had our Great Resist event in Gateshead, and time has been taken up, shall we say. I do apologise. You're very much welcome. Let's have an update.
Speak to as you know, New Zealand. I mean, comes to mind basket case. Yesterday, listening to being reminded that they may be vulnerable to the COVID that's developed into quite a monster. And have you been vaccinated again? So this sort of at the lowest intellect people you could possibly find in a society, in my view, is just non-stop. And just push that out again. Someone I know, you may have heard of, Brad Flutley. Brad is a very courageous Maori New Zealander, lovely bloke, intelligent man. He took on the challenge of challenging the government when Marsden Point was closed because of the whole climate change nonsense and what have you. And for those who don't know, Marsden Point did produce about 70% of New Zealand's refined fuel, and it would come in from tankers, be refined, and then used on obvious road and what have you, and for air travel. And we've produced the best air travel fuel in the world, and planes would stop here to refuel because it was so good. So Jacinda Ardern's government decided that we no longer needed this. This was not good country and impoverished us fuel-wise, we have to buy everyone else's fuel. Brad Flutley took this on, the Marsden Point protest, and set up a camp at Marsden Point and came to our place and many places around New Zealand and told us about what's going on, what the costs are, what the consequences are for New Zealanders, etc. Marsden Point is now, because we've changed to what you would call conservative government in the UK, National Party, is now looking to be reopened. It's still talk and action, but they're absolutely, who was off license quite some time ago, was challenged by the license owner to put his mask on. He said, I have a mask exemption and I don't need to put my mask on, thank you, and carried on shopping and bought his booze. The second time he went in, he was challenged again. He reminded them that he had a mask exemption. They said, we want to see it. He said, no, you don't have to see it. I have the exemption, but I know the law and the rules. You don't have to see it. All I have to do is say I have one, and I do have one. They said, we want to see it. He said, you can't see it. I know the law. And Brad does know the law. He knows common law, and he's very switched guy. The third time he went in there, this moron at the liquor store demanded the show and what have you. And he said, I'm not showing it to you. I don't have to. You need to know the law, mate. And stop harassing me. Give me my bottle of whatever. And the guy said, I'm calling the cops. He said, call the cops. That's fine. I'll wait outside for them. So he went outside and waited quite some time. The cops were amazed when they got there that he was still there. New Zealand cops, wow. How do you describe them? Unbelievable. They turned up, argued with him about his vaccine pass, his mask pass, and he said, I have it. And I said, well, see it. He said, listen, I know the law. The law states I don't have to produce it. I just have to have one. It's very clear. You need to know the law yourselves, They pepper sprayed and tasered him to the ground. Then they took him to jail. They accused him of assault, resisting arrest, and trying to escape. It's like accusing you of that, Liz. It's just like that. And so he gets back home and gets a court date. This is from his mother, actually. I listened to his mother yesterday describe this. And she said, court date, Brad was away that day. So he wrote to the court with an email and he said, I'm sorry I'm away that day, but I can do these dates. Can we reconvene and what have you? He heard nothing from the court. He called the court, heard nothing. Date came and went, heard nothing. Years later, months and months later, he gets pulled up for a speeding offence. So the coppers put him through the machine. The machine said wanted, didn't turn up to hearing. New Zealand police. The term genius comes to mind. Really, I mean, smart guys, these and girls. Most of them about 5 with an attitude. The big ones have steroids in them to understand what day it is. So they go, oh, we've got here Brad Flutley. And so they grab this criminal in jail. He hasn't been heard of for 2 months. He hasn't been charged with anything. His mother knows where he is. He's in Spring Hill. He hasn't been heard from for 2 months. They've kept him in jail with no charges for 2 months. This is not bloody Venezuela. This is New Zealand. This is New Zealand. My update. This totalitarian shit is going on today in New Zealand, and everyone needs to be aware of this, that nothing has changed. The government's changed. Nothing has changed. Oh, they get up and they bullshit you and tell you this and that is going on. The bloody liars, criminals. We're run by a criminal organization, which is controlled by the Zionists, and there's no question about that. I found out last night that New Zealand has been mining thousands of tons of gold for years and years and years per year. New Zealand doesn't have any gold reserves. I then found out this Jewish family is in charge of it and takes all the gold out of New Zealand. And I can't remember their names at the moment, but next time I'll have it for you. We are being raped and pillaged by the Zionists for our gold, our oil. Everything we do, I'm finding out, is being stolen. New Zealanders' houses are under a lien that if the as you call it, your council tax isn't us, because our councils were lent money by the Rothschilds on the understanding that the houses were turned over to them. The usury money lent to them not be paid, the interest not be paid. And so this is a issue. It's a worldwide thing. And people are waking up to it. But dear old New Zealand, press that has earmuffs on. The New Zealand press have earmuffs on, and they don't listen to anything that comes from anyone who dares to tell the truth.
It's the same over here, Jamie. All the press, the world press, are owned, I think, in total by 5 gigantic corporations. If you go, it'll all be Black Vanguard and etc. Anyway. So they're all totally controlled now. Even we used to have very good over here, as I'm sure you're aware, and you probably did or do have in New Zealand. You'll have local press, and you'll find that they've all been swallowed up as well. So you cannot get in the old days. I used to get a letter a week in our press in Mid Wales, and people used to say, "Oh, why haven't you got a letter in this week?" You know, because they used to look for my letters, and you know, now you get a letter published if you wanted to.
Yes, you've been cancelled. Yes, you are. You're troublesome to the what do they call them? They call them. I think that's a dreadful to people who other people's money, on other people's lives, on other people's children, on whole society. They gorge and rape countries from their resources and their people and their children. And someone calls them elites. They're total scum. And the unfortunate thing in aspects is they're generally asleep and don't want to know, because the stories are too horrific, really. And the press is totally controlled by the like BlackRock and Vanguard and Blackstone and Larry Fink's mates and Rothschilds and Rockefeller's mates. Every single pharmaceutical country in the world by a rock. Yes. So New Zealand's still a basket case. New Zealand interest rates haven't come down. Brought theirs down a month ago, but what happened today? Did they bring them down?
I just don't know. I haven't seen.
No, I don't know either. That's
saying
fine.
that they were going to keep them the same. The rumor was they were going to keep them the same.
Yeah, they're going to screw people further. They're going to screw people till they lose their houses and are desperate, and then have to live in 15-minute cities with their accounts because they have CBDCs and they can't get cash anymore. And yep, it's all moving ahead. I did hear a very encouraging story about white hats, and nothing about this whatsoever, but people need to look it up. The White House working behind the scenes to take out these globalist Zionists and restore order and democracy and Christianity into our world. Yeah, it's I think it's still a very dark picture. New Zealand, streets seem to be quite empty. People who think everything's normal again, but I think that a lot of people behind the curtains in their homes with very little money go out and lost their jobs. And we just had a paper mill and a sawmill down near Wairau, and there's big business in New Zealand. It's market and export. New Zealand grows an immense pine, which is great for building. And these two sawmills near Tuarangi and Wairau, you can look those up on the map. In the middle of the North Island map, there's a pulp paper mill down there, and there was a timber mill down there that made frames for houses and whatever, wood. They've closed. Them no longer afford the cost of the power to run their businesses. And this is another giant con. Turning to renewables and not using. New Zealand has an abundance of coal, yet we've closed our coal mines, we import it from Indonesia. What a bloody joke and a con that is. We should reverse that immediately and give all our businesses cheap power. We also have cheap power from the likes of Benmore Dam in the South Island, near Twizel, where we have a hydroelectric power, which is free energy. The water comes, the snow melts, the water comes, and over it goes, and we get free energy. But no, everything is manipulated and controlled by those above. So we gradually collapse New Zealand's economy. And it's a very sad day. Not only about, they talk about the 300 jobs lost at the mill. They don't talk about the thousands of jobs that rely on that mill. When they cut the tree, when they grow the trees, they cut the trees down. They bring them in for milling. They take the wood to the finisher shops and all that sort of stuff and the fuel. They don't talk about the chain of events where this is people's jobs. It's 280,000 people's jobs. No one talks about that, the knock-on effect of this disastrous decision. And there's not a single politician in New Zealand's papers calling for the heads of people who are producing power or running anything like that to supply cheap power to New Zealand business. There's nothing. You don't hear of anything.
It's outrageous, Jamie. It's a mirror image here as well. As you know, that we always produced our own coal, and really top do. We've got we sit on coal mines. I mean, people forget. They think about the Welsh valleys and the Yorkshire coalfields and the North coalfield. They forget down here in Kent, we have a coalfield that stretches out under the English Channel. And people have forgotten about the Kent coalfield. We had 4 big collieries here that all went. Yeah. Now, the difference between the southeast and, say, the Welsh valleys is that you can have alternative forms of employment. But if you look in the Welsh valleys, of course, what else can you grow on the hillside with 1/8 of an inch of soil? You can do nothing. So the whole, if you like, the whole way of life for the valleys just went. Whereas here, there was a little bit of wriggle room for people other jobs. But it's just absolutely monstrous. And where are we heading? That's the problem. If we don't put this back now, the skills that all these people have, and the, if you like, the machinery and everything that goes with it is all now gone.
Well, that's how they got rid of the shipyards in the UK. You were once the biggest shipbuilders in the world and the best. And what do? They remove the energy and destroyed shipbuilding. This is done by foul actors abroad. Well, you know, we think of voting for our. This is my view. Think of voting for our politicians as something we do 5 years or whatever. It's absolute nonsense. They're controlled by globalists, and they have no interest in your my well-being, none whatsoever.
Well, when you think about it, Sir Keir Starmer, who now appears to be our prime minister in an election of less than around about 20 people, if you look at him, absolutely. I have to smile. His wife has just been discovered receiving clothing from a donor.
$79,000 the two of them have received from this gay Pakistani millionaire. And they call Starmer's clothes work clothes.
Well, I had to smile. You'll love this, Jamie, and I can find it. Wonderful cartoon. I thought about it. You know, when you go to a charity shop, you take a black bag with clothing in it, and it's outside clothing for number 10.
They're so secure that they've been on anything. The arrogance they display now is astonishing.
We've got so many people now in prison for sending out a tweet on Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is they do, for thinking things and getting cross when you've had a couple of drinks and putting something down on the. Yes. They're in prison. Yeah. And pedophiles are walking the
street. Get a warning.
Yeah.
That's because half the judges and the system are pedophiles, and then adrenochrome and other stuff and such. You guys are going to get found out. You are. You're not on a list. You will get found out. Mark my words, you can kill how many you like. You will get found out and dealt with. It is appalling and disgusting what's going on.
Yes, it is, Jamie. Jamie, on a different note, have you had any update on the farming situation in New Zealand? I understand there's been some banking farmers. Any ideas?
I'm very low on the information of that. I've read articles. What seems to be happening is that legislation with New Zealand farmers is being challenged by the likes of Groundswell, which is one of the groups that are on out that don't accept that methane and cow farts are dangerous. We find out actually do not fart. So that gets rid of one of their ridiculous pieces of, so call it. But in order to shut down New Zealand farms, intent on doing, they've now made it very difficult for farmers to lend money and rules and how they pay it back, but sufficiently up to date to dig into the banks, but only to say they're all shills of Rothschilds.
Yeah, I can see this. Farmers over here had a section at Gateshead because they're paying farmers £360 an acre farm anymore, and they're for 3 years. And then, of course, after 3 years, they'll have to apply for a change of use to bring the farms back into.
What nonsense!
You can't write these things, Jamie. We're all suffering hugely, but fortunately, with brave people like the people that come and talk at our event on 5G, farming, child sex education, so many different banking and finance. The lack of democracy in the country. We all think we've got democracy. We go and put a ticket box every 4 or 5 years. It's a joke. So we've all these brave people, and then of course it all goes out across the internet, across the world, to everybody. So we're all just keep going. We're off to in Derbyshire in November. Again, brilliant speakers coming. So we keep going, and if one person brings another person, not sure whether these right or wrong or what have you, it just one becomes two becomes four. This is the only way we can do it.
We have a conference next week, next Saturday, NZDSOS and New Zealand doctors sold on something like that, speaking out with science. So I'll hopefully report back on that when we speak. That's running in Christchurch on Saturday, and it'll be Auckland the following Saturday. There are some fantastic groups that are persevering. They have a great deal of difficulty because the government refuses to respond to them or give them meaningful evidence when they have freedom of information calls, or supply them with irrefutable evidence that what they've been doing is either criminal behaviour or killing people, and they didn't know. Apparently, they don't want to know. So I have zero time for police, judiciary, politicians, people in councils, anything like that. I have my whole life, but I have no time now in New Zealand. When I look at what they are deliberately doing or not doing, it smacks of a massive criminal enterprise.
It is a worldwide criminal enterprise, Jamie.
Yes.
You're quite right. It's pervaded every part of our society. I know that if we've got to actually attack every bit that's coming, fortunately, we've got people on all sides attacking their own part that's coming together in events like our own, so that people get a complete feel of the whole that is going on, not one little bit. So we just have to keep going, and that's all I can say.
There's so much going on, that's for sure.
Jamie, thank you again for bringing us up to date. We look forward to hearing what the doctors have to say. So we'll make another one certainly within the next month. So thank you very much.
Lovely to chat, Liz.